Hello. My name is Kelsey Breseman. My presentation is on, well, this really long title, Developing an Open Product as a Distributed Team of Volunteers, Creating the Tehsil Project. My background is I'm one of the creators of Tehsil and of the Tehsil Project, and I'm on the Tehsil Project Steering Committee, which, if you've never heard of Tehsil, the very brief overview, let me get rid of this really obnoxious message. The very brief overview of what a Tehsil is we built hardware for web developers. So basically, everything you just saw Suze do, we basically said, that's awesome. A lot of web developers don't want to deal with that. What if it worked like this, as you see on the screen? And it does. And so that's been out for the past year. Lately, we've been working on the Tehsil 2, which comes out in a couple of months. And there's a number of differences, which I really won't go into. The one important one that I'm going to point out is the difference between developing it as a company and developing it as a distributed team of volunteers working on nights and weekends. So this is us as a company. We were never that big. But right now, last May, we actually sent out this email, which separated the company that was from the project that is. So the Tehsil project is not affiliated with a company. It's actually a project under the Dojo Foundation. And that's been a very interesting transition because going from working on it 8 hours a day, et cetera, to working on it when you can as a distributed group is quite a different proposition. So this is us now, approximately. And we're all around the world. It's obviously got a lot of the same faces, but there's also a lot of different ones, and you'll see some of them here in the audience as well. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, is the Tehsil project. And so I wanted to talk about what it's like to become this kind of project and be sort of naively leaping off the edge into what does it mean to run this kind of organization. And I've actually been writing this talk over and over again for the past month. Like, I'll write it, and then I scrapped it and write it again. It's like, I'll actually show you. I've written it this many times, a lot of times. I won't show you all this, I promise. But anyway, so I rewrote this yesterday just after Denise talked because I was like, okay, well, great. So now you've got the experienced view on it. I'll give you the opposite of that. So forgive my rough slide design, but I'll just launch right into it. So this is the governance structure that we have for our openly governed project. We've got steering committee, team members, and contributors. The steering committee does the overall guidance. Team members are people with commit access who are often also core contributors. And then, of course, any contributor can be anyone who does a typo fix to creating a whole new feature set, et cetera. And if this looks familiar to you, it's because we basically copied it exactly from IO.js, which is awesome. And that actually is a lot of what inspired us to be able to do this as an open source project. And it's actually been really cool because we've stolen stolen is the wrong word, but we've borrowed a lot of the open governance of IO.js and other projects and used that to try and build our own way of continuing this development. And it's pretty amazing to see these sorts of things start coming together. So I just wanted to give you the slice of life version of it because I think that's what fits into 20 minutes. So what's gone right, what's gone wrong, and what we're not sure about for the future. And launching right in. So when we first announced it, we actually were really excited to see that people were excited about our new project. People actually joined right away. And that was very inspiring to see. And it was partly because we were open, and I think also partly because we had just announced the Tehsil 2 a month prior. But so our team actually grew right away as soon as we started saying that we're not paying for it. Which was really neat, actually, because as a company, it gets pretty complicated when somebody says, hey, I'd love to help you out. What tasks can you give me? You start getting concerned about, well, how are we dealing with the IP? What kind of relationship is this? Because we're responsible back to our venture capitalists, and we were trying to figure out, how to make this all work legally and fairly. Now we don't have to deal with that because we're all volunteers too, and we're not really beholden to anyone. Any money comes back to the foundation. We don't have to be a business anymore, which actually is great. Everyone who was ever in our company was actually an engineer. We never had any business types, so this was really a relief for us. We've actually, as you can see, I won't go into the graphic too much, but we've basically gotten to get rid of all the bits that weren't engineering so that we can keep on doing the thing that we like, which is the research and development. We've got a pretty active group. Every time I log off of GitHub and log back in, my notifications feed is kind of crazy with different Tehsil repos happening. We've also got this openness, which is extremely useful. As a company, we were always devoted to creating value through openness, but it was always a bit of a, I don't know, are we allowed to tell people that? And obviously, we were setting our own rules for that, but when you're a company, it's a bit different. You're worried your investor is going to see something, et cetera. As an open project, we've been able to be even more open than ever before, along the lines of, so the graphic here this is an email that went out on Sunday, and basically it said, hey, sorry, but we're not going to be able to ship on the deadline we originally said. And this is very common in hardware. But it kind of sucks when you have to say that. And we said, well, okay, so we need to tell them. We need to tell them as soon as we know. We need to tell them why. This is like FCC certification issues, linked to the GitHub issue where we're working on it, that sort of thing, and exactly what the ongoing timeline is. And the really cool part about that is when you're a company, you get worried because people are like, well, we were depending on you. Isn't it your job to do this? When you can be very open, you get to be people in a much more real way. And that's quite nice. And in fact, so this went out, I just checked the MailChimp statistics. It went out to over 5,000 people it was opened by more than 5,000 people. People who send us angry responses, 0. Literally no one, which is amazing. And it just gives me a lot of faith in the community, and I think that that's just a trust created by openness. Going into what's gone wrong a little bit is it's really hard to be a distributed team. Like, I'm sure most of you have worked with team members who are remote or worked remotely. Now we're all remote. And we're all working in different time zones, at different times, on different things. Many of us have never met in person. I got to meet Flocky finally here. That's very complicated. So we need to figure out ways to do better about being accountable to each other and being accountable to a team. One of the things that I think we can do better about that is accountability isn't just about getting stuff done on a deadline. It's about sharing your knowledge, and particularly being able to say, I'm not going to be able to do something by X time, something came up, and being comfortable enough with your team to say that sort of thing. And so that's something that I'd like us to work on. Hardware troubles. Hardware is really hard. I mean, so like, you have to physically have one of these in order to work on a lot of it. We've done as much as we can in terms of like building a virtual machine and marking issues on our repos as you don't need hardware to contribute. But I mean, the exciting bit is the hardware. So figuring out how to distribute, we've got on the order of 90 boards ahead of time that we are able to use for any purposes. And so shipping those around the world to different contributors is really interesting, and particularly interesting when you run into FCC issues and say, great, okay, we need a test rig. Oh, who do we know who has lab equipment? Who has the expertise for this? What hardware person is going to be super excited about building a technology that is built so that web developers don't have to deal with hardware so much? It's really not super popular in the electrical engineering crowd. So this is a very interesting thing that I'm not actually sure how to fix it. I think it'll be an interesting journey for us. Right now, we're drawing on the expertise of our former paid electrical engineer who's still interested in this stuff, and also on the Nodebots community is kind of growing up to meet it. So then there's also some interesting things that we're looking forward to. For example, when Tehsil 2 ships, how does that change our organization? And we don't know yet. Ever since we've started, we've been driving towards this goal of let's ship Tehsil 2. And that's a very specific goal with a defined feature set. And afterwards, maybe it'll be easier. I mean, we don't have a deadline anymore, but maybe you know how when a deadline goes away, you get a little less excited about working on it sometimes. So we'll see. And then community reaction on that. If nobody likes it, that's actually simple because we still like it, so we'll keep doing it. If people really love it, I'm really curious to see if our support structures can handle that. And so that's going to be a really interesting challenge in the future. There's also this bit where we were a company, and it was very confusing, and our company name was Technical Machine, and our product name was Tehsil, and everyone got those mixed up, and we're like, oh no, the company's this, and the product's this, and now the group name is Tehsil Project, and the product itself is Tehsil, and it's more confusing than ever. And so I have a lot of conversations where people are like, so you work at Tehsil, right? I'm like, well, it's not a company. I also work somewhere else. I don't get paid for the. Yes, I do work on Tehsil. That's an interesting one, and I'm very curious to see as the knowledge sort of spreads from this confusion of like, oh, they're not a company. If people will trust us more or less or any of that, I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. And finally, of course, the question of, well, can we keep making it work? Can we keep devoting the time and energy and organizational skill, like all of this? These kinds of projects tend to die through neglect. And I think that there's a lot that goes into, this is what I wrote my other talks about, is there's a lot that goes into keeping people inspired and keeping them in the project. And that's something that we're continuously learning. Personally, I think the two driving things to continuing to make it work is continue to like each other, which is huge, and continue to build something that we care about, something that, well, for me, like, this feels like empowerment. When I take this to people who've never done hardware before and hand it to them and say, hey, don't be afraid of hardware. You can do this. You can have a robot within 20 minutes, even if you've never coded before. And that's very empowering for me and for them. And that's so that if we can keep that kind of thought in our mind of what is it we're building, why, who is it for, and continue having that passion about it, I think we can keep it going. So I think that's basically 20 minutes. I forgot to start a timer. But when I practiced it this morning, it worked out. So you're welcome to continue following the story. If you're interested, I can publish one of the versions of my talks was an hour long, and it had all the lessons and examples and references to things. So if you'd like, I can publish that. But yeah, reach out, and I'd be really interested in talking with any of you who have open source expertise or want to. Thank you.